Hey everybody, it's Mitch, and welcome to my next video. Today we have got another Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 video for you, and today we are going to be talking all about crafting. So let's get into it, because crafting is an interesting subject. There's a lot of complexities to it. So first off, with crafting, it's a little different than a lot of other skills. A lot of skills, you pick the skill and then you just put points into it, whatever. This one is one of a few skills that has multiple options, like knowledge and profession. Knowledge is a little different because knowledge skills, most classes we're going to give specific ones, whereas with profession and craft, if a skill gives this, then you can pick whatever you want in that. However, you still need to take them all individually, and getting benefits in one does not help you in another. So yeah, basically the skill is all about making things. So and what I mean by taking ranks in one doesn't help you another. So if you want to be good at making swords and bows, you need to put ranks into both, and there's no synergy between the two. So your experience at making swords doesn't help you make bows. And also armor is an entirely separate one. So if you want to make that, that's an entirely different crafting one that you'll have to put ranks into. Trust me, I know. I made a character that was good at all three, and he put a whole bunch of ranks into all three of them, and that ate up like half of his skill points. It can be really heavy if you want to try and do all that. So yeah, keep that in mind if you're ever building a character. But yes, you do have to put those in. If you want to be good at it, you're going to want to put max ranks, because it's just a really good idea for crafting if you want to be good at it. If you just want to be competent enough to make basic stuff, don't worry about it too much. A couple ranks is fine. But if you want to be good enough to make good stuff, yeah, you're going to need better ranks. So let's go over how it works, because that'll help inform why I say that. So first off, you can use this skill in a bit of a non-conventional way. This way it's actually very similar to the profession check. You make a check roll, and you get and that'll be for 1 week's worth of work, and that'll tell you how, you divide that by 2, and that's how much gold you get for the week. Basically, doing it this way, you are assumed to be crafting random things for generally an employer of some kind. Like basically you're going into work, and your boss, who maybe is a better craftsman than you, or maybe he's craftsman in a different area, or maybe he's just a merchant, and he's saying, hey, I need you to make this many swords or this many arrows or whatever it is he's telling you to make. And he puts you to work on it, and you make your check, and that's basically your paycheck for the week. That's basically what's assumed to be going on with that. Doesn't really matter what you're making in such an instance, because you're just kind of giving it to somebody else who's giving you money in exchange for your work. Even if you don't finish it that week, you're making progress towards it, and basically you're working a day job with your crafting skill when doing it that method. That's not the main way to use crafting though, but that is an option, and it is listed first in the book, so I figured I'd get that out of the way. Now, if you want to use it in a way that's not just a profession check, but in crafting, how you would do it is, well, first you have to decide what you're going to make. And you're not necessarily going to make money from this. There's a whole other thing that could go into it if you're trying to make money from crafting. We'll get into that in a minute. But basically you're trying to create something. Maybe you're trying to create some arrows, or you're trying to create a sword, or you're trying to create a suit of armor. You can create any of that, assuming you have the right skills. Or maybe you're creating, an alchemical item. That one's a little bit more complicated. But there's a whole bunch of different crafting skills that you could potentially do. Now, what you want to do once you've decided what you're going to make, you look at the table and you see what the DC for that is. For instance, if you wanted to make a composite longbow, or one with a strength rating, the DC is 15, plus 2 times the strength rating. So basically, if you wanted to make like a a composite longbow with a strength rating of +5, which is really high, that'd be a 25 DC. This is a very difficult thing to make. That's actually higher than the Masterwork component. So it would be somewhat difficult. Basically, what you then do is you then say, okay, I'm going to make this, whatever it is, and you make a craft check for the week. You can do it by the day too. We'll get into that in a sec. But you'd make it for the week, and you figure out, okay, how much gold is this thing going to cost? How much gold does this thing normally cost? And you multiply that by 10 to figure out how much silver it costs. And that is basically your target number that you're shooting for. And that once you hit that number, then the object will be then whatever you're working on will be complete. So you're going to shoot for that. Then what you want to do is once you've figured out what that number is, you need to buy raw materials, which cost 1/3 the cost of the normal item. So you do have to actually pay money for it, because you can't just create something out of nothing. You need materials, although it is only 1/3 the cost, assuming you do it perfect. We'll get into that. It's actually going to be more around the lines of half, but that can vary depending on how good a job you do. It can vary wildly, actually. Yeah, so what you then do is you're then going to, once you've bought all the materials, you then make a craft check, and you see if you make the DC. If you do, great. You take whatever your result was, multiply it by the DC, and that is going to be how much progress you made, and that's going to be how many silver pieces worth of progress you made that week. So, for instance, let's keep the numbers simple. Let's say it was something that was a DC 10, like an armor or shield. So you're just making some basic armor, like basic chain shirt. Great. And you happen to get a 10 on your armor check. You just barely made the DC, which is good enough, which means you made 100 silver worth of progress. So you made 10 gold worth of progress in that week. So yeah, now maybe the DC was 20 and you rolled 20. No, that's 400. So you made 40 gold worth of progress. So that's 4 times as much. You can see how things kind of scale up. With higher DCs, you'll get more progress, which we are going to get into that. So yeah, that's basically how that works. Once you've hit that progress bar, you're good. If you don't make it that week, fine. You made some progress, and then you can continue on the next week. If you did it a lot, if you overshot it by a lot, well, guess what? You didn't take the whole week. You finished early and had some more time at the end of, and had some time at the end of the week to do other things. So yeah, you said you were going to spend a week doing that, but your roll was high, so you actually only spent and you rolled 3 times what you needed to in order to get it done in a week. So guess what? You only spend 1/3 of a week, and now you can spend that other 2/3 of the week doing other things. Yeah. So you didn't actually spend the whole week crafting, or maybe you did. Maybe you decided when you were done you'd start to craft something else. I don't know. It's kind of up to you at that point. But anyways, that's kind of how that works. Now, let's say you didn't succeed on the check. Well, if you failed by 4 or less, that's not a big deal. You just made no progress that week. No harm, no foul. You kind of toiled away and it just wasn't working out. You weren't able to really accomplish anything. You just kind of were hitting a wall, but everything's kind of fine. Not that big a deal. But if you failed by 5 or more, that's when there's a problem. Yeah, if you failed by 5 or more, you end up with this situation where you messed up. You done messed up, and you didn't lose any progress, but you kind of ruined some of the materials, and now you're kind of gonna have to buy some replacement ones. So you're gonna need to go and look at that 1/3 the cost of materials that you spent. You're gonna need to spend half of that again. So you're gonna need to spend 1/6 of the item's cost. Now this is why I say it generally is going to cost about half as much, because it's generally assumed you're probably going to screw up like once, and it's going to cost 1/3 plus 1/6. That's what 3/6 yeah, 3/6, which is a half. So yeah, it'll assume you screwed up once, then it'll cost half, and every time after that, it's going to cost another sixth. So it can really add up. And you could, if you screw up enough, you can even actually spend more in raw materials than the thing's even worth. So don't screw up too much. If you're not confident in making that DC fairly reliably, you probably shouldn't be trying it. That's just not a great idea. Now, another thing that you can do is you can, instead of working for a week, you can do it by the day, in which case you go with copper pieces instead of silver pieces. So basically everything is 10 times more, which makes sense. You need to hit a result 10 times higher, but you can do it in a day instead of a week, which a day is a tenth of a week-ish. So it's a seventh, but that's close enough. So that's kind of how the book deals with that one. Generally, you would only use that rule when crafting something that you can reliably make in a day or two, like a bunch of arrows. You can make so many arrows in a day if you really go at it, or a bunch of daggers. Those can be done really, really quick and easily. They're not particularly complex weapons. They have low DCs, so you're not likely to fail. Their cost is only one, their cost of a dagger is only a couple of gold. Arrows, it's one gold for 20, so not a big issue. And you don't have to make a full quiver. You can make just single you can make arrows, and you can say, oh well, I made 36 arrows today. Like that's perfectly viable as an option. So definitely a thing you can do. So if you're making stuff like that, yeah, definitely go by that. Now, another thing that is an option, the book in the player's handbook, it says you can add 10 to the DC in order voluntarily before you make your roll. Which the reason why you would do this is that'll make you go faster, because if you're multiplying by a bigger number, because you multiply the DC times your check result, and if the DC is higher, then you're multiplying, then one of those numbers you're multiplying is bigger, and it makes your progress go faster. So basically, by adding 10, you're rushing, and you're more likely to mess up and not make progress. But if you do succeed, you're going to go faster and get more progress done. So it's a little bit of a risk-reward ratio. Although if you're skilled enough at your trade, you don't have to worry about that. The rules as they are, a 1 is just a 1. So, if you can if the check is only 1 higher than your result, then you're golden. Like if you have like a if you have like a plus 14 to craft armor and the DC is a 15, well, guess what? You're guaranteed to succeed. You roll a 1, oh well, 14 plus 1, that's 15. You just barely made it. So that's not bad. Now, should your check get higher, maybe you have a plus 24. Well, now it would make a lot of sense to add that, voluntarily add the 10, because you're still guaranteed to succeed either way, and now you're just going faster, so you can reliably do that. Now, the the player's handbook doesn't specify going beyond adding a 10, like adding 20 or 30, but in the Races of Stone, it does specify that, yes, you can add any multiplier of 10 to the DC you want. You just have to declare it before you make your check. This is a much better option once you reach higher levels. There's also forges in the Races of Stone that can give you plus 20 competency bonus on weaponsmithing and armor smithing respectively, although you do have to be a dwarf to use them. So that's a thing. But yeah, another thing that you could potentially do to try and increase your crafting abilities is, grabbing a level of exemplar could help. That could make it so you can now take a 10, plus you get a plus 4 competency bonus to the skill. And that can come in handy, being able to get your skill up a little, so you're a little more reliable at it. Plus being able to take a 10 is just nice. Then you don't have to roll anymore, and you can just add to your DC and know, oh yeah, I know what I'm going to get because I can just always take a 10. So definitely good. I think there's other ways to accomplish that besides just exemplar, but exemplar is one of the better ways. I think rogue might have some stuff like that. So yeah, just some options on crafting on that. Now, some reasons why you might want to do this. Well, if you really look into it, when you're looking at another component, sorry, Masterwork component. So Masterwork weapons are an additional 300 gold and 150 for armor. Yeah, armor, Masterwork armor is an additional 150. Got weird with words there for a second. Anyways, yeah, so it's that, and this is a second component. So first you would make a normal weapon, and then you would turn it into a masterwork weapon, effectively with how the crafting rules work. Now, you would set out to make it masterwork from the start, but you would design it, you would start out as a regular one, and you do have to pay 1/3 that masterwork component as well. Which, yes, it does come from high quality, but if you notice something from just real world examples, if you look at what a master craftsman makes and what just some run-of-the-mill craftsman makes, it's not just about their craftsmanship and the attention to detail that they put in. Those master craftsmen almost always are using higher quality materials. They're using the good stuff because they know that quality matters and they want to put that extra quality into their work. And that's how they get these quality products, is they're using quality materials. Whereas your run-of-the-mill stuff, they just kind of use, stuff that works. Maybe not the highest quality stuff, but stuff. And they get run-of-the-mill results from it. So that's kind of how I rationalize why you have to pay that cost. It's not explicitly said in the book, but it makes a lot of sense why that would be the case. So anyways, yeah, you do have to do that. The DC for the Masterwork component is a flat 20, regardless of whether or not the beginning component was more or less than that. Now, if you are making a something that's naturally masterwork, like you're using special materials, I believe you would go with the masterwork component from the start, since that is worked into the cost, and you would just make the one single component, or you could, or maybe your DM will rule that you subtract 300 from it, make it one way, and then add the masterwork. Really, I think that's a DM call when dealing with special materials. There aren't any actual explicit rules for actually crafting with that. But if you do want to craft with that, one thing to note is they're very expensive, and the amount of time it'll actually take to craft these is absolutely insane. Like, I looked into doing this. I mean, I was fairly low level. I was like maybe 3rd, 4th level at the time. And I was looking at trying to craft like mithril full plate. And holy crap, was that a long time to do. It is absolutely ridiculous. You could spend years just working on a single set of full plate armor. It is absolutely insane. There's a reason why those are so expensive. So yeah, upping your DC can really help with that. Getting any bonus you can to really try and get those multipliers flowing can really, really reduce your crafting time a lot. Normally, you see that when you start getting multipliers flowing like you do with crafting, it breaks the game. But in all honesty, all this does is it makes you be able to craft a lot faster, so you can make money quick. So less of a game break, especially considering you just end up with a bunch of stuff. You're not guaranteed to be able to make money with it. And okay, so you have a bunch of really expensive stuff. It can be very hard to pawn off that much stuff if you make too much of it, and you might start getting less and less returns for it. You might flood the market with masterwork full plates if you're so good at them that you can make them real fast that suddenly they start selling for way less, even though you're still paying the cost as listed in the book. So there's things like that. Another interesting thing to note, with crafting is things with using magic, like craft. What was it? Not craft. Fabricate and minor creation, things like that can create stuff. However, they can create simple stuff without any issue, but to create something that requires skill, you actually have to make a craft check in order to do that. So yeah, or even using an ironwood spell, like you still need a craft check if you want to make like an ironwood sword to be like high quality, like and make it as strong as steel. Like if you want to make it good, you need to make the craft check. So that the craft is still important even if you're using magic, although using the magic will speed up your crafting time considerably, I believe. So that is one way to up it. Your crafting time is to just use magic if you have it. Not everyone's going to have that, but yeah, that's definitely an option there. But you still do need the skill. If you are going to try and make good crafting material, you want to max it out. Either that, or you just take a few ranks and you don't really try and make good stuff. You just use it to like make ammunition as you need it. Like take a few ranks in the appropriate craft skill to make arrows. I think it's the bow making. And you just, take a couple ranks, enough that you can reliably make some arrows. And, you can just make your own arrows for a few ranks without having to worry about having to buy them. Is it the most important thing to do? No, you can buy them. They're pretty cheap. But, maybe you're in a situation where finding stores that sell arrows is tricky. You're out in the woods a lot. So it could make some sense to do that. But aside from just making basic stuff for yourself, having a couple of ranks of craft to handle that, you really want to go all out and max out craft, because you gain some significant benefits, mostly in crafting time, which is a big deal if you're campaigning. Like taking, large amounts of downtime can often be very difficult. So it's definitely good to reduce that as much as possible. But that's mostly all there is to crafting. It's complicated, as I can see by how long this video is, but it's not too terribly complicated. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Love to hear your thoughts on crafting. If there's anything I missed or anything. I don't think there is, but maybe. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a like. That definitely helps me out. Maybe subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I do all sorts of D&D 3.5 stuff. Ring that notification bell so you never miss out on a video. And as always, I'm Mitch, and I'll be seeing you